Hello and welcome back to the Reptile Goth YouTube channel. As always, I will be your host, Morgan. Now, this past week, I didn't really have anything posted. That's because I happen to also be in college, so we had finals, and that tends to get in the way of everything else. But we're back now, and hopefully you'll be as excited about the article I read that we're about to talk about today. And that article is about bumblebees and some interesting things that they've been doing in the recent years as a response to the changing climate. Before we jump into this, I would like to give you all a quick reminder that I do have a Patreon page that I am overhauling at the moment, and for as little as $1 a month, you can get access to early content, behind the scenes features, and different fun things depending on what tier level you are. And I'm also going to be overhauling the website and regularly posting articles and blogs there as well, so look for that in the coming weeks now that I have time to use my brain and do things again. Without further ado, let's talk more about some bumblebees and some fun behavioral adaptations that are being observed. There has been a recent study published looking at how bumblebees are dealing with the changing climate, and I will post the Science Daily article about that research and the original research article as well in the description down below, since both of those are open access for anyone to look at. I believe the research article is. Don't quote me on that. Sometimes I'm logged into my school's VPN and I don't realize it, and I have more access to things than other people because of that. But moving on here, they've been looking at how these bumblebees are dealing with, as the climate warms, they emerge from hibernations with the rising temperature earlier in the season than the flowers that they depend on are blooming. So this tends to happen because plants don't necessarily rely on temperature to get their cue for when to flower. Plants, their hormones, their physiology tend to be more reliant on light levels, and there's a lot more science that goes into it, but basically when the day and night cycle is in that optimum range, it will trigger them to flower. That's the quick and dirty way of explaining it. And with the warming climates, the bumblebees are emerging from their slumber before the light levels are optimum for these plants to be flowering, which is problematic since they rely on that pollen for survival. And these researchers noticed something interesting, first with some captive bumblebees. They noticed them damaging some of the plants, and that was a curious behavior. Why would these bees damage these plants? But they also noticed that these plants were beginning to flower before it would normally be expected. So in an experimental setup, the damaged plants, they were looking at, I believe, tomato plants and mustard plants in the controlled setting with the captive bees. And these plants were flowering up to 14 days early when they were damaged by the bumblebees. And when they tried to recreate that with humans damaging the bees, they weren't necessarily getting the same results, suggesting that the bees were also using something else to get these plants to flower. But the next question was, okay, is this only a thing that we're seeing in the captive bees? So they went out in the field and saw bumblebees also doing this in the wild setting in the uncontrolled environment as well, suggesting that this is an adaptation that bees are being observed utilizing now to stimulate these flowering events in the plants that haven't gotten the correct cues to flower yet, which is exciting because one of the main concerns with these bumblebee species is that as the climate warms and the plants are still flowering with the light, not with the temperature, they are at risk for extinction if they cannot get the pollen, if they can't get the nutrients they need. So it's an exciting thing to be seeing these species adapting, but we're still not entirely sure how this is coming about, because this behavior isn't seen in things like honeybees. It's specific to these bumblebee species. So it's opening up a little bit of a mystery, but also a little bit exciting that these species that are so important to the environment have their own way of dealing with this human-induced climate change that we are seeing. And whether you are skeptical of that data that's being put out, whether you believe in climate change or not, this is a tired statement, but you know, science really doesn't care about your feelings. Human-induced climate change is happening. We are seeing it. There is so much data that backs it up, and there are really no arguments to deny anymore that it's happening, because we're seeing the environment shift. If you watched my video from the other week that was originally produced as a project for my climate change class, you will have seen the examples I used of environments, ecosystems being entirely altered because of these climate change events and climatic activity. And it's exciting to see that at some level there are species that are being able to survive without just moving north or moving up the mountain, that they are being able to show this behavioral adaptation. And it gives us another way to look at how maybe we're not going to wipe out everything, but it's still important to note that we're seeing these things because of the human-induced climate change, not because of necessarily natural things. While this adaptation may not be a new adaptation, we're not sure of the origins of it yet, it is hope for the environment, is hope for these species that are most at risk. And they are also species that once they're gone, there will be greater damages as a whole to the ecosystem because of their disappearance. But this article was really neat. I was really excited by seeing how clever little bumblebees really are and how they're dealing with the flowers and emerging before their primary source of nutrition emerges at the beginning of spring. So I do encourage you to go read those articles. Like I said, they will be linked down in the description below. This is all I really have for you this week, but I do encourage you to please do your research in this area. Please explore more articles and perhaps go back and watch my video. I provide plenty of articles and resources in the description of that one as well if you are interested. Now, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your morning, day, evening, what have you, and I will see you all next time. Thank you again for watching this video. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and ring that bell if you would like to see more. And if you'd like to follow me on any of my other social medias, the links are down in the description below. Don't forget to check out thereptilegoth.com for all of my articles and blog posts. If you found any value in this video and you would like to help support the channel, please check out my Patreon page. That link is also in the description down below. And a special thanks goes out to my Diamond Dragon patron, Diane V. What you're doing is really helping me fund a dream here. I will see you guys all in the next one.